First of all, thank you so much for being here. I'd say we start with a little introduction. Maybe starting with you, Professor Iriona Dumitrescu.
Hello, my name is Iriona Dumitrescu. I teach medieval English literature here at the University of Bonn, and I'm also an essayist.
Hi, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Denise Avilés, and I work as senior researcher at the Center for Development Research, CEF, of the University of Bonn since January last year.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sreedevi Reghu. I'm basically from India, and I'm a master's student here since 2018 in the Neuroscience department.
Thank you, everyone. I'd say we start with a question to all of you. The video of our partner universities that we just saw indicated that students would like around 30% of teaching to be held online after the pandemic. But what do you think? First of all, do you think Bonn students are ready for digital teaching after the pandemic? And also, what's the teacher's perspective on this?
Yeah, I can start by giving an insight into the students, how the students found it. So I can say that both the students and the teaching staff found it a bit skeptic initially, like the sudden and rapid transition to an online platform, because both parties were like more used to having one-to-one lectures in a classroom setting. But I can say that the course coordinators and the teaching staff put in their best effort to actually make this transition as smooth as possible. And also, since even though this was like supposed to be a temporary solution until the pandemic situation gets under control, now the opinion has slightly changed, and the students are now out of the opinion that it actually depends upon the type of course. For courses which are like purely theory based, it does not really make a world of difference whether the course is actually online or held in a classroom. And I can also say that the online platform offers more flexibility with regards to time and location. But on the other hand, for other courses like the practical courses and the elective courses, which give students a chance to actually interact with scientists and work in labs, this might not be the best option, and it still requires a lot of fine-tuning. Some of the labs actually offered like online practical demonstrations, but it will never be at par with the chance to actually have hands-on experience with techniques in the lab. So I would say it actually depends upon the type of course, the effectiveness of globalization, bringing in an online platform. It actually depends upon the type of course, and yeah.
Thank you. Maybe one of the teachers.
I can continue if you want. So. Well, I think it's really not surprising that students want more of digital formats, because, as one of my colleagues always says, they are digital natives, no? So I have no doubt that they are very well prepared and equipped in material terms, as well as they possess the skills to do that, no? I think maybe the question is if this 30% of other number is how to ensure that this keeps the high quality learning process, no? And maybe I connect that with the second part of your question about the readiness of the teaching staff, no, to do this. And I think, at least in my experience and talking with my colleagues, I think we as lecturers are really very open to explore new avenues, and we are actually already engaged in innovative practices like pre-recording lectures or spending more time on one-to-one online meetings with students in small groups, making more coffee breaks, even if shorter. So we are already changing our ways of doing it, no? But we have also some questions and some concerns that emerge, like, for example, on how to keep the students at the other side of the screen really engaged, and not to have only passive listeners, but really to engage them and to ensure that the learning process is there. And many of us would prefer a right balance between in-person lectures or processes, because it has a lot of in-person lectures have a lot of advantages, no? And yeah, okay, I don't want to spend much.
I'll add to that quite briefly. Actually, in my department, we many of us miss being in class a great deal. The teachers miss seeing their students in class, and I know for many of my students, they miss being there too. We have had a great discovery, which I think is that our classes can become more accessible. So whether it's for students with disabilities or students with care responsibilities, or even some students find it easier to concentrate on lectures that are delivered online without all of the distraction. So there are pluses, but I think, in fact, I disagreed with the video. It's not the lectures will be great online, but the seminar, I think, is still very special, and the seminar is still better in person, but we're going to be more flexible about how we do it in the future.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So we will just be curious how digital teaching will actually look like in the future. We just have to wait, I assume. I'd like to continue now with a question for you, Ms. Reghu. As a neuroscience student, I assume you spend a lot of time in the laboratory. Can you tell us how laboratory work has changed in the past month?
Yes. Again, that depends upon the type of work. So neuroscience is both computational side as well as laboratory side. So I can speak for the second year students because I'm a second year student, and we had a mixed experience because most of us were done with our lab rotations and were about to start our master thesis when the lockdown happened. So some of us who were actually doing computational stuff, I wouldn't say they did not face any hurdles, but they had a much smoother ride, and they could work from home, and they did not face many delays. But for some of us, including me, who actually had to work in the lab from morning till evening to have had some meaningful work done by the end of the day, we actually had a very different experience. So because most of the labs were either locked down, were either or under minimal operation mode. So we could not actually, we had to wait for 3-4 months and until the lockdown was over. But as soon as the rules were more relaxed, we could return to the labs, but we were still working under strict regulations which ensure that there's minimum overlap between different schedules, and there's minimum number of people working in the lab at the time. So all this, and also the lab meetings, the seminars, scientific discussions, everything were moved to the online platform. So all this caused a lot of confusion and delays in the beginning, but I would say that everybody got used to it, and the online platform has now become the new normal. So we are all getting used to it, and we are all up for it now. So yeah.
Yeah, I see. Then we hope the best for you and your studies in the future. And my next question is for you, Dr. Avilés. Professor Dr. Giobrato Mukherjee just said in his speech, mobility patterns are changing because of Corona. So when did you last travel for research purposes, and how has the collaboration developed since March?
Okay, interestingly enough, my last travel was in the 6th of March, when life was still going on as usual, to Colombia, accompanying an official visit of the internationalization office together with my colleagues to our partners in Colombia. And I came back the 15th of March, when Germany was completely different, and the world as well, I think, because the next day we were advised to work from home. And actually I took the last standard flight from Bogota to Frankfurt. And yeah, going back to the second part of your question, collaboration has been going very smoothly, I would say. We were able to continue our planning and even academic events online. Even writing joint new applications and publications online, but it's, undoubtedly we changed. For example, we pushed to the next year some crucial meetings that require more exchange of different sources of knowledge, more discussions, more in-depth discussions, and that was done thanks also to the flexibility of the AD and other donors, so we have changed some things, but okay, so far we have managed online, and it has been okay, mainly because we have already a trusting relation established with these partners.
Yeah, I see. I actually have a pretty similar question for you, Professor Dumitrescu. How was the last international conference that you attended organized? Could you give us a brief insight how it was?
The last conference I was part of took place earlier this month. It was in Chicago. I unfortunately was not. It was a conference on food and the book from 1300 to 1800, organized by the Newberry Library. And they did it over 10 days. Everything was online. And in a way, it was actually quite fantastic because they scheduled the sessions so that people from around or from a large chunk of the world could attend them. And on the one hand, it took more planning because we had to have meetings before the meetings to plan how the Zoom would work, how our presentations would work if we had any. So it was a little more work intensive for us. But at the same time, it meant that people from a lot of places who usually would not have access to an academic conference were able to tune in. It was put on YouTube, it was done on Facebook Live, and it was just a much more broadly accessible conference of public interest to many people. So I think that's actually kind of an interesting model which I hope will remain in the years to come, that more lectures and more scholarly conferences become available internationally, either to scholars or simply to people who are interested.
That's actually really nice to see that through digital media, some events can even be better, or there are also advantages of these. That's really good to hear after all the negative things that always happen. And now we've already come to the last question of our panel. And as it's the last question, let's talk a little about the future. What would the three of you like to happen in the upcoming academic year? I don't know who wants to start, maybe.
Yeah, I can start if you want. So I think as all of us, I really hope that the pandemic will be under control and that our students will be able to travel safely and to be sure that will not get stuck either in the field or here. So, but I also hope that life will continue, including the lessons we have learned. No? We have learned that it's not necessary to make so many travels, that there are some things that can be done online. Maybe avoid short trips, but our stays could be longer, and during these stays we can really have more intensive exchange of knowledge, ideas, planning. So, and above all, I think we have learned that this pandemic has magnified and deepened some inequalities, have made them more visible, and that academia has a lot to contribute to make them visible, like economic, gender-related, or, I don't know, the digital divide. So we have been doing that at SAFE through blogs, through policy briefings, and I think we have a lot to contribute to make these gaps visible and also to reduce it. And we hope to continue doing that next year.
Yeah, you can go.
I think I would like to see a lot of flexibility, or more flexibility, more resiliency. I think also more connection, in the sense that the pandemic, as horrible as it has been, has also allowed us to focus on some of the most important parts of life. And science and arts and humanities, all of these things belong to that. So I hope it can have this focusing element that we really know to cherish and also to preserve and to fund these practices which are fundamental to our survival, both physical and also psychological.
Thank you. Do you want to say something as well for the future, or just wait for the future?
Actually, I'm really glad to know that the university is still accepting applications from international students, even after the pandemic situation in 2020. So, and I think we are already past the element of surprise, and there won't be anything to be taken aback at, hopefully, unless something really drastic happens. So I think everything will be more organized, and we know now what to expect and how things will be. So students and the lecturers and everyone will be more prepared. So I think it will be much easier year ahead.
Yeah, that sounds good as well. Thank you so much for your thoughts. I'd say then we still have to be curious for the future, but we already have some good ideas, I'd say. Unfortunately, we've reached the end of our discussion already, though. But I'd like to thank you all so much again for participating in the panel. And again, I would like to ask you, if you take back your seats, I have to ask you to leave the stage one by one and keep your distance. Thank you so much.